Hi, it's Steve from Beach. Here's a Hammer demo, and we are going to jump in and just get started with a new content mode that I have been building for Hammer. I've had some requests in our community forum. People are keen to get started, so I'm going to just show you kind of the approach we're taking, how you get started within, how you get an initial content-driven site set up in Hammer. So let's get started. I've got Hammer app loaded here. I'm in a project. I'm just going to start with a basic Hammer starter project. Let's go ahead and open this up. Okay, so nothing non-standard here. It's just the Hammer starter project, and we're going to convert this to a content site. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to need a couple of things. I want my code editor, so I'm going to use Cursor for this. I'm going to make use of Cursor because for the purpose of this demo, it will save you watching me type some markup, and I'll leverage Cursor for doing that. So let's go ahead and open this project in Cursor. Okay. And we're going to come back to this in a second, but let's just reference, this is a standard Hammer project. It does have Cursor rules for our standard Hammer tags, rule sets in here, the Hammer cache, and the build folder that Hammer creates with your compiled site output. Apart from that, nothing non-standard going on here. So we are going to convert this into a simple blog, and so for that there's a few things we're going to need to do. Let's create a little task list in here, and we'll get rid of these. Let's go ahead and add we're going to activate content mode firstly. So you'll see that content mode is disabled by default. We actually have to and this simplifies the workflow because not every site you want to create has a CMS behind it. Sorry, Cursor, can you stop doing that? Let's from there we're going to set up our content model. Thank you. Cursor's being very aggressive with the suggestions today. We are going to, from our content model, we're then going to create our templates, and then we're going to finally create our content, and then we're going to build and test our site. I think Cursor was pretty much right about that. Let's set that one in. Build and test our site. God, was it listening? Okay, there we are. Let's tidy that up. Okay, here's our plan in here. So let's go ahead and pick our first to do. We're going to activate content mode. So we do that by heading into our site settings. This is where it's enabled. There's a simple little toggle switch just here. Let's go ahead and activate that, and we'll jump into the content configuration. And we're going to create a new collection. So this panel on the left, this is where all your collections get listed. And we're going to just replace some of this placeholder stuff for our posts collection. So we're going to create a blog. It's going to have posts. That means that we want it to look up the content for our posts in our content directory that will have a post subdirectory, and that's where we'll put our content files. So we just declare where we want that to be in here. We'll use the markdown type. There is also a YAML type, so if you don't have the need for lots of rich content, you might just use a simple YAML data structure. But in this case, I'm going to use the markdown file, which is a front matter kind of format markdown file. Then we're going to design our template, and that's going to be in a file called post.html, and that will be inside a templates directory. Finally, we want to decide how we want our generated content to be output. So in this case, I'm going to have a folder called blog. So I'll have my site domain /blog, And then I have a couple of options here. I could generate, a page for each, an actual file representing each, where the file name is derived from my post title, or the slug version, so a URL friendly version of that. Instead, what I'm going to actually do is create another subdirectory with the name, and then I'm going to use the index.html. So that way I will automatically have my page available at blog / and then the name, and then a closing slash, rather than a long file name .html that I then can manipulate using Forge RC and Forge server settings, but I don't want to have to do that for now. So this is the format I've chosen. You have some choice there. We define what field will actually be used to generate our slug. So in this case, I'm going to use the default, which is the title. We need to add that title, so that's the first field we're going to add, and it will just be a simple string, and it will be required. We're going to add a date. We want our blog post to be dated. We will add an author. For now, I'm just going to do this as a simple string. In a later video, we'll talk about relations, so we might actually add author as another model, and then we'll add the ability to associate an instance of an author with a particular post. And then finally, we will have our body content, and this will be in markdown form and also required. Okay, in fact, I'm going to make the author not required, and you'll see a little bit about how we handle that in our template. So let's go ahead and save that. I think that should be good, and we'll come out of the settings, saving those. So we've activated content mode. We have set up our content model. Oh, I pressed the wrong one. Set up our content model. And so now we are going to want to probably create our template. I think that's the next best thing that we can do. So fortunately, as I mentioned, Hammer, now we've activated the content mode. Hammer's actually added some cursor rules into here, which describes how the whole content mode in Hammer works. So that's great. Cursor is actually very aware of that now, so we can make use of that for the purpose of this demo. You'll see that I have this content configuration file. So that's basically the file that sits behind the UI that we were just using in Hammer. And Hammer has also created some additional folders. And so let's just check those out. We have a content folder. It's empty currently, and this is the one where we're going to want to put our posts, and we'll come in and do that in a second. We have a public folder. This is where we'll add assets. We'll follow that one up in another future video. So this is where we'll store images. Let's say we wanted a thumbnail or a featured image for each one of our posts. This is where we would place our assets. And then finally, we've got templates, and that's where we're going to jump into next. So we're going to ask Cursor, please create a post template for our blog. Okay, let's see. So Cursor's thinking. You can see it's read our content model, so it knew to look for that. It's been reading our cursor rules. It's had a look at into the templates directory, reading our style sheet, and now generating our post.html file. Okay, here we go. Let's take a closer look at this. So I'm going to keep this edit. Thank you, Cursor. And we'll check out some of the template syntax in here. So, Cursor's not quite done. Thank you. Okay, great. So in here we now have, as this is a template, the template has access to build time variables coming from our content, and so that's handled via this doc variable. And using dot syntax, we have access to the fields or properties of that variable. So in this case, up in our head section of our page, we're referencing the title and sort of using this to format the meta page title. We use standard hammer tags inside templates as well, so you can see we're still using the style sheet and the header include. And as we come down into the main content, you can see that again we're using the title, this time inside of our H1, so this is our page heading. And we're also using the date property of our content model. Now, what you can see in here is that we're also, not only are we accessing that date directly, we are also using some helpers that we make available at build time. And this is extensible. We can add more helpers into this depending on what you want. So do let us know if you have any specific requests. So we have a format date helper. We feed in the date from our content, and we describe what type of format that we want from that. And that's what Hammer will output during the build process. As I mentioned earlier, we made the author optional, not required. So that is always good practice to enclose that in a conditional check. So if there is an author, then we'll see this content along with the author name, and if not, then we will not render this out. Obviously, if you don't do the conditional check, you'll end up with this content rendering out every time, and you won't have the any content in here. It'll look a bit strange. And then finally, we've got the markdown content. We're just literally placing this inside of this div and styling it using the post content class. Now the only difference here, because this is markdown, we insert this exclamation mark into the syntax. So you have the $sign as the variable identifier, and then the exclamation mark. And this just tells Hammer that this is markdown, and will render that out as HTML. And we're accessing the body field. Other than that, straightforward JavaScript tag, Hammer JavaScript tag, and we look like we're in pretty good shape. So that's saved. The final step is to actually generate some content. So I'm going to drop this in here and ask Cursor to do that. Generate 3 blog posts about Hammer for Mac. Remember to escape any mentions of hammer tags in the body content. I just know that it might forget to do that. Let's see, we'll check. Okay, Cursor's having a little think. So now you can see it's creating the first markdown file, so that's important. We selected in our content model that this collection would be markdown format. And so you can see it's consistently creating these markdown files. It's also creating them, as you'll see, inside the post directory. So you can see these being added in here. Let's go ahead and open this first one up. Keep it. You can see above, at the top here, we have those 3 sort of simple fields: the title, the date, and the author. Everything, so this is kind of the front matter format markdown file. Everything below these 3 dashed lines is our main body field, our main body markdown content down here. As you can see, authored in markdown. Okay. And now Cursor has gone ahead and created each of those. So we're going to keep all of those. Have a quick look. Looks okay. Yeah. and you'll see that build has been completed. So let's just have a look into our build output. Now, as we'd expect, we have a blog folder. So, outside the build folder, there is no blog folder that's been generated for us at build time. Inside of that, we've got 3 subdirectories. So this is, again, based on that output path that I specified. We've got getting started with Hammer for Mac as the directory name, and inside an index.html file. So that's exactly what we expect. As we look in here, we can see that those content variables have been now replaced. We've got that in the title. The date content has been replaced, not only the direct usage but also with the helper. We've got our title, we've got our author, which has obviously passed the conditional check and has been rendered, and then down here we've got the markdown that has now been output as valid HTML. And so that all looks pretty good. Let's go ahead in here and into our generated pages. Let's open up one of these and we'll take a look. So there we go. That's an example generated page that didn't otherwise exist but has been enabled through our blog. Just thinking the last step actually is to step outside of the template, and perhaps we want to add a list of those posts to our index page, for example, like recent posts or something like that. So let's go ahead and ask Cursor to do that. Let's add a list of our blog posts to our home page. Let's see how Cursor handles this. So adding blog posts to the homepage using the Hammer CMS loop syntax. So that's promising. That's kind of what we want. So pages outside of the templates also have access to our collections when content mode is enabled. Okay, so in this case, we've now got this section in our homepage that's using the Hammer loop syntax. So so it's going to loop over collections.post, so the name of our collection, and for each post, we're going to render out this snippet just here inside of this loop. And so for that, we've got an H3. We wrap that in an anchor tag, and we generate the URL using the slug. We've got some inline styles, and then we're rendering the post title, so that looks okay. And then inside the paragraph tag, we show the date, again using that same helpers format, and then conditionally we check if there's an author, and that's our little snippet. And we expect to see 3 of these items rendered on our index page. So let's see if that has indeed worked as we expected. So let's go ahead into our index page and we'll open that. So here we go. We've got our blog posts and it's rendering out our 3 posts from our collection. And it's just because of the path syntax. If I was running this on a local server, this would work just fine. And so yeah, for each one of those posts, we've got the title, it's an active link with the URL. I do notice that the date hasn't rendered, so that might be a little issue that I'll have to look into. But other than that, I would call that a successful first look at setting up CMS and page generation inside of Hammer from templates to create new files, and also being able to work with that collection data in your standard HTML files. That's enough from me. I can't wait to see how you get on with it. I can't wait to see where you get stuck. I'm here to help. Bye for now, until next time.